Hello everyone, I am Rucha and I am going to speak about a dilemma which our entire world is facing at the moment. Energy dilemma. Our world today is in an incredibly perplexing state. To personify the state, let's say it stands surrounded by problems. A pandemic, global warming, climate change, pollution, natural and man-made disasters, wars between communities, families, countries, people. In short, it is drowning in the ocean of problems. But for a teenager like me, these weren't the kind of problems I could solve. And so I decided to stay happy with focusing my math problems and at the most my parents' disputes. You all might have heard and read many such speeches where the speaker comes to this point and then shares an epiphany, a moment of realization for him or her that made them realize, whoa, climate change, global warming, big deal. For me, it was sort of a gradual process, but it took the turn towards an energy dilemma quite surprisingly. I'd been learning about the types of energy and how which is the best form for us and for the planet separately from a very young age. At that time, I couldn't anticipate the effect an energy source we use would create on Earth. When I was mature enough to understand what we are doing to our planet, I was thunderstruck. We are not killing it, we are doing something much worse. However cruel it may sound, we are squeezing all the resources out of Earth and in turn also forcing it to stay alive just to fulfill our needs. Or shall I say, greed. Again, I felt the surge of doing something for the planet so deeply within me. People were inventing gadgets to clean up the ocean. Scientists were striving to find eco-friendly everything. Greta Thunberg made the front page of my school daily every day as such an inspiring climate change activist. But among these things, I couldn't imagine myself doing any of it. I neither had the means or knowledge to build something of my own, nor did I want to be an activist. Then a thought struck me. What I was thinking about as a world level problem was unknown to many in the world. That was it. I knew. All I had to do was to tell people what the problem was, give them my opinion on it, and at least 50% of them must have an idea to resolve at least one out of the numerous issues we are facing. And TED gave me an opportunity to do just that. It gave me a gleaming platform for sharing my idea with people worldwide. Talking about climate change and anything related to it was not a child's play. I had to find a clear picture, a factor which would help me navigate throughout my speech. After research and discussions, I came to the conclusion that this factor which was going to guide me throughout was energy. From Einstein's equation to respiration in cells, energy was everywhere. In today's date, even a baby wouldn't play with a toy which doesn't move or doesn't require energy. The number of changes which can be brought in the world just by changing the energy source we rely on are surprisingly more than we think. But as it always happens, when one problem ends, another begins. Similarly with energy, the biggest problem is to find a source which cannot cause much harm to the earth but also quench our thirst for an uninterrupted electricity supply. When I considered this question for the first time, I immediately flipped through my physics textbook and listed out which I thought were the most feasible sources of energy we could rely on. I shortlisted fossil fuels, solar energy, hydroelectric energy, and nuclear energy. They were divided into two basic parts: traditional or conventional sources or non-conventional resources. The traditional ones included burning of natural gas, oil, or in a nutshell, fossil fuels. Coal also came under them. These are readily available at the moment and it is relatively easy to produce energy from them. But looking at the other side of the coin, their costs are increasing. They are non-renewable and so, once we run out of them, What do we look at as a reliable alternative energy which gives us similar results? These fossil fuels, as you all know, also release oxides of carbon, nitrogen, and sulfur, which contribute to pollution, acid rain, and they lead us back to where we started from, not caring for our planet. So, obviously, I'm going to eliminate this option from my list now. On the contrary, let's discuss about a non conventional energy resource, the solar energy. It is pocket friendly, environment friendly, and we can never run out of it. But before we jump to the conclusion that it's the best, let's look at its downsides. Toxic and hazardous materials are used to manufacture solar plants, but the pollution caused by them is almost negligible. The task here is the management of solar waste disposal. The two other more prominent drawbacks are that it requires an exceptionally large area and that it is weather dependent. Therefore, we can conclude that our electrical needs cannot be solely satisfied through solar energy unless we come up with a way to deal with all of these problems. Next option is hydroelectricity. Water from a great height falls on turbines to rotate them, so that the rotating turbines can convert mechanical energy into electrical energy, or in simple terms, just generate electricity. Process sounds simple enough and so are its advantages. Renewable resource, does not contaminate the environment and is safe to use. But whether it's a middle class family or a nation, one of the most essential factors is whether the given product, or in this case the source of energy, is cost friendly or not. Setting up of a hydroelectric power plant is expensive to build, plus it also increases the drought potential of the region. Displacement of localities is another rising problem due to hydroelectric power plants. Keeping this on hold for a while, let's look at the last option we have, the much debated energy source, the nuclear energy. As soon as I said these words, many of you might visualize it in the form of the story I'm just about to narrate. 26th April 1986. It's post 1 am. The people of Pripyat, Chernobyl are in deep sleep, unaware of what lies in future. The engineers in the nuclear power plant are distressed and know that pressing one switch might cost them the lives of the entire population of Chernobyl. To make the situation worse, these engineers are forced by their seniors to carry out a nuclear test which they are not trained for, and under the circumstances that the nuclear reactor is already malfunctioning. Out of the fear of losing their jobs, the engineers do what they are told to, and before they know, the explosion has occurred, emitting around 20,000 Röntgen of radiation per hour. The radiation released in one day was twice the intensity of that of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. But it's too late to prevent or stop anything now. The damage has been done. The city of Pripyat is going to remain uninhabitable for over 300 years. A firefighter working in this power plant died within a week after the incident. His wife gave birth to a baby girl who died within 4 hours of her birth, who absorbed the radiation instead of her mother. But this is not the end. 25 years later, after this human and environmental tragedy, when we move towards the east in Fukushima, Japan, 4 nuclear reactors exploded in March 2011, causing the case of biggest civil liability in the world till date. The history repeats. Skin diseases, cancer, contamination, death, etc. Doesn't sound like a happy ending, does it? I've always been a fan of movies and books which leave you satisfied and happy about the plot after you finish reading or watching them. But after reading articles and watching videos on nuclear accidents and reactors which filled my homepage on every internet platform, I was shaken. I wondered, if there's so much bad about it, why is nuclear power said to be the most clean and reliable energy source? I figured I needed to find the answer to this question to tally the nuclear energy with others and finally conclude with the best, most reliable source of energy. Discussion, debate, and research led me to find the necessity to use nuclear energy over any other energy source. Nuclear power plants deliver electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, irrespective of weather and seasons. As well as reducing greenhouse gas emissions, nuclear generation helps reduce air pollution, responsible for 6.5 million deaths globally each year. Nuclear is a zero emission clean energy source. It generates power through fission, which is the process of splitting uranium atoms to produce energy. The heat released by fission is used to create steam that spins a turbine to generate electricity without the harmful byproducts emitted by fossil fuels. With these details on possible energy sources and pros and cons of each of it, what we get here is energy dilemma. We are constantly in pursuit of progress. At the same time, we also want a balance to ensure the health of our earth. Concluding with my points below. Nuclear energy seems better in parameters of cleanliness, renewable in nature, cost, and also space required per unit. However, it is too risky for a single mistake, and repercussions of that mistake, which will not only be deadly but also cause effects on generations together. We need to think of safety measures of highest level to avoid any miss. If we have been successfully operating International Space Station or now reaching Mars with precision for so many years without major safety or accuracy issues in space, we should be able to have safety nets surrounding nuclear plants generating energy. Before I conclude, here is a small food for thought. How about power plants in space? Yes, it is being discussed in science forums already and looks promising. Until this becomes a viable option, let us try and choose the right, safe energy. Thank you everyone who pushed me to deliver this talk, and most importantly, I thank you all for hearing me out. Thanks once again.